one of the key NATO allies, meeting with President Biden, joins me now, the Prime Minister of Slovenia, Janeza Janše. Prime Minister, thank you for being here. This is a huge moment. What do you want to come out of this extraordinary NATO meeting? Why do you all need to be meeting in person right now?
Well, good morning, Kate. This meeting will be one of the most important meetings in last decades. It's very clear what Ukraine needs now. First, there is a hope, then there are modern weapons, then money and humanitarian aid. And NATO should provide first two. Hope is very important, modern weapons also, but it's also important that we are strengthening the eastern flank of NATO, because this is also something we have to do to show the Russians, or to show Mr. Putin, that NATO is not something which is only stepping back.
The White House has made clear that more sanctions are coming. That will at least be announced when President Biden arrives. But no sanctions so far have stopped Putin. Do you accept at this point that sanctions will not stop him?
Look, we know from the history that sanctions are very important because they're weakening the aggressor. But I don't remember any moment in history where sanctions stop the war immediately. So this will not happen, because currently Russian tanks can be stopped by missiles and by the Ukrainian tanks and by the Ukrainians who are fighting against. So we have to know that sanctions are very important. They are weakening the Russians. We have to do everything we can to help Ukrainians to become stronger, and we have to do everything to do what we can for Russians to become weaker. So we have to combine our efforts. We have to do everything we can. And when we are speaking about the sanctions, first we have to put in front of our actions those sanctions which are directly hurting the Russian war machine, because the Russian technology is partially made from the spare parts produced on the West. And this is, I think, something we have to focus immediately on.
Something else that may be on the table. The Prime Minister of Poland, who traveled with you to Ukraine, said that he's going to be formally asking NATO to send a peacekeeping mission to Ukraine. The Kremlin spokesperson today actually said about this, he said, any possible contact between our military and NATO military can lead to quite understandable consequences that are difficult to repair. What do you make of that threat, Prime Minister? Do you want to see a peacekeeping mission head in?
Well, we have peacekeeping and peacemaking missions. For a peacekeeping mission, we have to establish some kind of peace, or at least ceasefire. This is not currently the situation on the ground. But what we see when we visited Kiev, the government and President Zelensky, we saw strong determination on the Ukrainian side to prevail, to fight. And I think that we have to do everything to help them to be strong enough. This means that we have to provide them not only so-called defensive weapons, but also offensive weapons, which should be used on the territory of Ukraine. Russia has no veto power on this. And only then I think there is a situation where we will be able to speak about the serious peacekeeping missions, because for peacekeeping mission, we have to have peace to protect. And now we are not yet there. So when we are speaking about such missions, there could be some actions in between. But for a real peacekeeping mission, and I hope we'll come to this situation, I only see one organization which is capable to do it, and this is NATO. So in this point, I agree with the Polish proposal.
So the Kremlin, that very same Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, also just spoke with CNN's Christian Amanpour. And during the interview, he repeatedly refused to deny that Putin could resort to using nuclear weapons here. Let me play this part for you.
Well, we have a concept of domestic security. And, well, it's public. You can read all the reasons for nuclear arms to be used. So if it is an existential threat for our country, then it can be used in accordance with our concept.
So they seem fine leaving on the table the option of using nuclear weapons here, which should be unbelievable to everyone. What do you say to this?
I don't think that Russia will use the nuclear weapons, because using nuclear weapons means, passing the threshold where there is area of no return. So this is something like having suicidal intentions. I don't think that people who are needed, to execute such order, if it is given, are willing to die. So it's nuclear weapons are issue of deterrence, not on using it. So it's very, how to say, easily for Russia to threaten the population, especially in Europe, especially in our part of the Europe where we are close. But I don't think this is a viable option. So we have to see situation as it is, not as Russians are trying to project it.
Which can be hard to decipher, honestly, sometimes. Finally, there have been constant phone calls between world leaders and President Zelensky of Ukraine throughout this conflict, this war. But you went into Kyiv. You went there with two other world leaders last week. Why was it so important for you to meet there? Why was it so important to you to go in rather than call in when you clearly know the security risk?
Well, it's easy to call, there is no risk in calling to Kyiv. The communication is still working. But 30 years ago, Slovenia was in the same situation when we were invaded by the Yugoslav Communist Army. Nobody came to see us, to support us. And we know exactly how President Zelensky and Prime Minister Shmyhal and the colleagues in Ukrainian government feel. So we came there to give them a hope, to give them a message that they are not forgotten, that we believe in them. We also brought to them a draft plan of OECD, how to help Ukraine to rebuild after the war. So they are not written out. So this message is, I think, the most important, because if there is no hope, there is no fight.
If it is most important, Prime Minister, should President Biden do the same?
Well, we are in different positions. So for President of the United States to go into war zone means something much more important than three prime ministers from European countries to go there, because we know the significance of the United States and the importance of the decisions you're making in the United States. I think that now when West is united, condemning the Russian aggression and supporting the Ukraine, we all know that we are strong enough to stop somehow this war and aggression and to bring peace there, only if there is strong involvement of the United States. And I say thank you to your government, your president, to your media, who are making this situation presentable and helping Ukrainians and also Europeans, because we have, frankly speaking, we have neglected the security issues during last decades. And now United States is needed more than any time after the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.